again to our show that is called Real Shame. It's a show where we watch movies, us two guys, from our movie list of shame or movie blind spots, basically movies that we haven't seen, and then we're watching them, and then we're telling you what we think about them, and hopefully you're enjoying them. I'm Adam.
I'm Andy.
This week we're watching two movies that I've never seen before, directed by someone that director that you actually like a lot of.
I do.
So to get into the first movie, I'm going to let you introduce it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that first movie?
Alrighty. Margot and her son Claude travel to Long Island to attend the wedding of her sister Pauline. And soon, strong family emotions begin to come out in Margot at the Wedding.
Is Malcolm what you thought he'd be?
Well, I didn't know what to...
The mustache is temporary. He saved it for last when he was shaving. It's meant to be funny.
You told me.
Yeah. I'm sorry, with so little time to prepare, we had to put you in Malcolm's storage room.
This was Becky's room. Poor Becky.
Poor Becky. Well, now it's a storage room. I just start to feel like it's our house and not my parents, you know?
Our parents.
Of course. Sorry, it might still smell like paint.
I thought he was a musician.
Well, music's officially a hobby. He's painting now and writing letters to newspapers and magazines. He's very meticulous. He'll spend up to a week writing a response to a music review. He's incredibly smart. Maybe too smart, I don't know. We're doing very well.
Good. I mean, you must be.
So Margot at the Wedding is written and directed by Noah Baumbach. Yes, I am a fan of Noah Baumbach's writing and directing. I'm pretty sure I've seen every movie that he's done up to this point. Margot at the Wedding came out in 2007. It stars Nicole Kidman as the titular Margot. Jennifer Jason Leigh stars as her sister Pauline. And actually, Noah Baumbach and Jennifer Jason Leigh were married at this time. They got divorced a few years after this, but they were married at this time. Jack Black plays Pauline's fiance, husband-to-be Malcolm. Zane, I guess it's Pais, plays Nicole Kidman's son or Margot's son Claude in the film. Yep. Kieran Hines, I said his name wrong when we talked about Belfast when we were talking about the Academy Awards. Kieran Hines plays Dick Koosman. And John Turturro has a very small role as Nicole Kidman's husband, Jim, in the film. So this is a movie that I've seen one time before. So this is my second viewing, but I know it is a movie that you've never seen.
Never seen.
So I kind of picked the movies that we're doing this week because we did do Kicking and Screaming way back in the beginning.
Yeah,
we when Real Shame was in its infancy, and it seems like that got a lot of comments, that video, got a lot of, kind of discussion or whatever. That was Noah Baumbach's first film. I'm a fan of it. I mean, I've basically grown up with that film. I watched it when I was a young 20-something, whatever, and have watched it periodically over the last 20-odd years. But I don't remember you being that high on it.
I was not that high on it. I wanted to, but I was not.
Well, so I thought, we'll do a couple of other Noah Baumbach movies, and see what you think. Because I guess the only other one you've seen is While We're Young?
I remember seeing While We're Young in theaters, but then I also watched Marriage Story last year because that got a lot of critical acclaim, and I liked Marriage Story when I watched it.
Right. But Margot at the Wedding, the movie that you've never seen, did you know anything about Margot at the Wedding before you saw it?
I did not. I kept on thinking it was not Nicole Kidman. I thought it was... what's her face who played Catwoman in the Nolan trilogy?
Oh, Anne Hathaway.
I keep on thinking it was Anne Hathaway in the pink hat, but no, it was Nicole Kidman.
I think Margot at the Wedding and Rachel Getting Married came out at the same, roughly the same time or close to maybe within a year of each other. No, so I could totally get that. I totally get that. Yeah. Yeah, Rachel Getting Married, have you ever seen that?
I have not, no.
And I won't subject you to it. I hate it.
And then I get Rachel Getting Married and Vicky Cristina Barcelona confused too.
Oh man,
I don't know why.
You're I'm all over the place. Wires everywhere.
My brain, you don't want to go up there. It's a jumbled mess. In case you can't tell from over 300 episodes of us doing this, it's a lot of mess up there. My brain is
sometimes a jumbled mess as well. All right, so not you weren't that favorable at Kicking and Screaming.
Yep.
While We're Young.
I don't remember much about it. I don't remember if I liked it or didn't like that. So it didn't really stick with me.
Okay, so in Marriage Story, you're favorable on. So we'll toss While We're Young out. Yeah. You don't like Kicking and Screaming. You did like Marriage Story. So now you're at the third film basically not excluding While We're Young, what did you think about Margot at the Wedding?
I have I have contradictory feelings about this movie. I think it's well acted. Like I think it's hard for an actress to want to portray someone that's so unlikable as Nicole Kidman as Margot.
Definitely.
And she's very like selfish in her actions, and she's always like saying snide things about people and saying things behind their back. And it's interesting to kind of see her like talk and say things and like she talked to her sister Pauline or Paul, and then Pauline's like, don't tell anyone, and the first thing she does is she like says it to her son, so her son will say it, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And just like so I think that's well done. I don't, it's hard. So my biggest complaints on this movie are two things. One is it just feels like it just jumps from one thing to another. It doesn't feel very cohesive. Like we have one scene where they're like at the house at night. The next scene they're like walking in the woods and stuff like that. And there's really no like really good transition or anything like that. Like they don't mention they're gonna walk in the woods, which would be a very pedestrian way of doing it. But there's been movies that can do those transitions a little bit better, that make it more seamless and all that kind of stuff. It just feels like it's really just jumping from one place to another throughout the whole movie instead of being like really seamless and cohesive. So that was kind of throwing me off a little bit. And part of the movie too feels kind of overwritten a little bit. It doesn't feel very natural in the dialogue and the things people say. And I don't know if Noah Baumbach's going for something a little bit more elevated and a little bit something different than what would be a natural dialogue. But a lot of times I'm just like, why are they saying it like that? Like that seems odd. Like that doesn't feel like the way people would talk and all that. So that kind of I bristled up against that a little bit. So I'm kind of conflicted because I do think Nicole Kidman is interesting and in the story, but I wish we kind of really, instead of being because I'm trying to figure out like what the movie was about, because it's really more of like a slice of life. Like there's really no kind of thing that's really driving the story. I mean, obviously there's a wedding, but it's really like the wedding's kind of in the background the whole time and not really taking a big part. But I really wish the movie kind of was focusing on Margot, and it's almost like, let's deep dive into like what kind of person Margot is, like all the things she's going through and all that kind of stuff. But the movie doesn't really seem very interested in digging in beneath the surface of Margot. It's more about, let's put Margot in this place and kind of see how she is and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of wish it was a little bit different in that aspect, that we would kind of understand like why Margot is this way. And you get little bits of clues and stuff like that, like things she said about her father when her and Pauline are talking, and they're asked like, why are we this way with men and all that kind of stuff. And you find out that her marriage is basically, she's separated. I don't think separated, but her and John Turturro basically, separating or on the path to being separated and stuff like that. So you get like little glimpses of it, but I really wish we kind of sunk our teeth into, Margot as a character and really understand why her worldview and why she is this way, rather than get like her just kind of reacting to things. So there's aspects I like of it, and the fact like I really like the performances that the actors are kind of putting in. I do think Jack Black seems kind of like he's in a different movie, and I don't think Zane brought so much to Claude. I feel like Claude's pretty underwritten as it is. He's like almost like a punching bag. It feels like at times for Margot.
Yeah.
So I like the performances, but I really wish we spent this time kind of understanding how she was ticking and what was going on with her. So I'm kind of mixed in where I fall at with Margot on the wedding, Margot at the wedding. Not so that's kind of where I am right now. But I'm curious where you follow this movie. So you said you've seen it once before. Do you remember anything about the movie?
Yeah, I mean, I remember the ending where she's like running after the bus and whatnot, and so I liked it when I saw it the first time. I will say a lot more than this time.
Gotcha.
I'm not really. In fact, I think this is his worst film. Honestly, out of everything that he's done, I think at the time I was a little more lenient on it, probably because he didn't have as many films at that point.
Yeah.
He's been a little bit more prolific in the 2010s decade, and whatnot. But at the time, so basically Noah Baumbach in the 1990s, he did Kicking and Screaming, he did Mr. Jealousy, he did Highball, and then I think he didn't do another movie until 2005, Squid and the Whale, and then he did Margaret at the Wedding after that, I believe. So he didn't have a whole lot at this point.
Mhm.
And the 90s period is all kind of lighter comedy
Yeah.
kind of movies, like Kicking and Screaming and Mr. Jealousy's like that. Highball is basically him and his friends kind of goofing around making a movie. It's not really about much of anything. Squid and the Whale, starting with the Squid and the Whale, he started making much more serious kind of character dramas like this. Margaret at the Wedding, Squid and the Whale, even, While We're Young, the Meyerowitz stories, all those kind of movies, I would say, fall into that category. I think it takes guts to make a film with an unlikable character as the protagonist.
It's hard.
But it's good to do that, I think, because it's realistic. That's real life.
Yeah.
Some people are just unlikable. If every protagonist of every movie was like an amazing, awesome person, I think that would be kind of boring. So I applaud them, and I think it takes guts to make a film, to write a film and direct a film about a character like Nicole Kidman in this film, and it takes guts to play that kind of character. So Nicole Kidman is playing an unglamorous, kind of unlikable character. So I give them credit for that. And I like you, I think most of the performances are good. And I like the writing. I mean, I like Noah Baumbach's writing, but overall, the movie, it's too abrasive.
Yeah.
It's too unlikable for me to really get into it. And I think a lot of his movies are just kind of slice of life and just what are these characters doing in this particular week of time or weekend of time. So I don't really fault it for that, but I can see what you're saying completely. And I tend to agree with it more with this movie. I just don't care that much.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I think the performances are fine. Kudos, go out to Nicole Kidman, Jennifer Jason Leigh, and everybody, for playing character. Because Jennifer Jason Leigh's not the most likable person either. None of these characters really are.
None of them are.
So,
I think because Jack Black does some pretty low things and stuff in the movie that you find out, and
right.
I mean,
maybe
Dick
Kuzman, the Kieran Hines character, is kind of an asshole. You know, so
even like the babysitter we kind of mentioned with Jack Black.
Yeah.
Spoiler. One thing I do like though this movie that I was thinking about a little bit is when they're on the bus or the train to Jennifer to her family childhood home and stuff like that, and she like gets mad at like Claude for touching her jacket or whatever. I think that's a perfect encapsulation of like her character and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think he does stuff like that, like sprinkled through the movie. You're like, okay, this is like I totally get like where they're coming from and stuff like that. Because for a second I was like, did I miss something? Like, why is she so like this is his mom, right? And all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay, wait, this is just like what she is. So there's stuff like that where I'm like, okay, this is cool. Like he kind of, and I think I said the same thing with Marriage Story. There's like some parts where it's like feels very, verisimilitude. There's a lot of verisimilitude. Feels very realistic. Like when Laura Dern takes off her shoes and talking to Scarlett Johansson in her office and stuff like that. Like I thought that was very cool and very interesting, and that pulled me in. And there's aspects to that in this movie too.
Yeah, Noah Baumbach, because I've seen all of his movies, I mean, I always lump him into the same category as Wes Anderson, Whit Stillman, Hal Hartley, even Woody Allen. These guys that write and direct pretty much all the movies that they do. So they tend to have the same kinds of character. There's always a writer in Noah Baumbach's movies. There's always a writer, and that writer is always taking things from real life and writing them down in stories, and people get mad at them. They're like, no, you can't use that. No, you can. I swear that happens in like every Noah Baumbach movie. So you just kind of have to accept or don't accept. I mean, you don't have to. But if you're going to get into these movies, you kind of have to accept that sameness. That it's like, oh, well, there's like just like Woody Allen's always the neurotic kind of guy that he is, right? So if you don't want to see that in every movie, you're going to dislike a lot of his movies because he's pretty much always that same character. But yeah, the characters in Noah Baumbach's movies, there's always like a writer. There are always these erudite, kind of sophisticated intellectual people who listen to Jackson Brown or whatever, or Galaxy 500 or something, and they read these really intelligent books and stuff like that. So you kind of have to accept that if you're going to get into these movies, and I think this movie is no exception. But as I say, I think out of all of his body of work, this is the crappiest one. But again, I mean, it's as we said, I've said it probably 50 times at this point. It's well acted. It's to me well written, but it's just too abrasive. Too abrasive,
and I feel the hardest part for me is just so disjointed. Like it needed some stronger through line. We needed to be more focused on something, and I think it would have been more interesting. Because this is where I am.
Yeah. And for the record, I'm also not a fan of While We're Young.
Okay.
You can't remember how you feel about it, but I don't like that movie either.
I just remember Ben Stiller wanting a hat because Adam Driver's wearing the hat.
That's right, yeah.
And that might even be...
We got to be like the young, cool kids.
That might even be in the trailer. Who knows?
I don't know.
All right. So we know where we stand on this. I'm probably a little bit more negative on it than you are, but we're the critics on this movie.
Just 52% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, 40% audience. The audience is like, what the hell is this? Leonard Maltin gave it 2 stars, but it is streaming on Showtime if you care to watch or revisit Margot at the Wedding.
That's where I watched it.
Hey, nice.
All right, because I only had an SD copy. I figured I'd give this in its full HD glory.
Gotcha.
All right, well, that was Margot on the Wedding. On these Monday episodes, we always like to talk about what we've been watching. So, Andy, since we've seen you last, what have you been watching?
Yeah, so still more horror movies.
All right.
Last week, I mentioned some horror movies that I watched, and I'm still watching them now. Probably the next week, I'll probably have something other than horror movies. But who knows? I might still have horror movies.
I'll have horror movies.
I don't know. But I watched 3 horror movies that I would like to point out. The first one is a movie that I think was a Shudder original. Shudder, the channel, the streaming service, whatever is Shudder original. It's called Vicious Fun. Okay. Have you heard of this one?
I have not.
I don't remember where I heard of it either, but I saw some list that said it was like an underrated, good kind of horror film or whatnot. I thought it was pretty good overall. The main character is, to me, annoying as all get out.
Yeah.
Like, he's super annoying. So I found it hard to get into the movie for the longest time, but eventually I kind of got used to him. And he's really the only thing that I found kind of annoying about the movie. Everybody else in the movie I was okay with. But it's basically about it takes place in the 1980s. He goes to this restaurant and he gets too drunk and he ends up falling asleep in like the closet. Like they have like a closet where they keep all their cleaning supplies and stuff. He falls asleep. He wakes up. And it turns out that at this restaurant, there's like a meeting of all these serial killers.
Okay.
They're like meeting after hours and discussing about how they like to kill people and stuff. And he comes out and they mistake him for this serial killer that's absent. They think that it's him.
Yeah.
And things kind of just go from there.
Okay.
So it's an interesting kind of plot. Again, once I kind of got used to the main character, I thought it was pretty fun overall. It's vicious fun.
All right.
It kind of lives up to its title, but I thought it was pretty decent overall. I liked it. The second movie I want to mention is Terrifier, which has Art the Clown. And right now, actually, in theaters, Terrifier 2 has been released recently. And I hear news stories where people are fainting and getting sick. They said the same things about like The Exorcist back in the day and Jaws and probably lots of horror movies where people, and who knows if any of it's true.
I want to see a movie that makes me faint.
Yeah, that'd be kind of interesting, but
it'd be an interesting sensation.
I don't plan on seeing Terrifier 2 in the movie theater. I'll just wait for it to be streaming or whatnot. But since the original Terrifier is on Tubi and it's free, I was like, what the hell? I'll watch the original Terrifier because I'd heard it was gory and gross and all that stuff. And I mean, I think it's gory and stuff. It's only about 80 minutes. But it just feels like a lot of it is filler. I mean, I'm just waiting for the next kind of gory thing to happen. And the director, I believe his name is Damien Leone. He's done all the Art the Clown stuff. So Terrifier, Terrifier 2, All Hallows Eve. He's done all that. He really likes to have art mutilate people's heads and faces. So you're going to see a lot of that if you watch All Hallows Eve and Terrifier and presumably Terrifier 2. I don't know. I can't speak to it. So overall, I think Art the Clown is kind of a cool character. We need another like Leatherface or Jason Voorhees or whatever. So I think Art the Clown fits the bill, but I didn't really care for Terrifier that much. who knows what I'll think about Terrifier 2. I know it's about an hour longer than Terrifier, and I already think Terrifier felt like a lot of filler. So, well, I'm dubious about Terrifier 2's chances of winning me over. The
Yep.
final film I want to mention is called Possum. And Possum is a movie that stars, I believe it's Sean Harris is his name. People would know him from the Mission Impossible movies. He's the villainous guy in like the last two or
Oh,
something. That guy, yeah.
yeah.
I don't remember his character's name in the Mission Impossible movies, but he's the star of Possum. Possum is not a traditional horror film. It's more just kind of creepy. He's a puppeteer, and he has to basically return home because there's been some kind of scandal in his life. He has to return home to where his father lives. I think his mother's dead or something. He has to return home to where his father lives, and he is kind of haunted by creepy imagery, basically. The movie itself visually is great. The acting is great. The music score is completely appropriate and spooky. And the thing that impressed me about it, probably the most, is that after it was over, I looked up who wrote and directed it, and the writer-director is Matthew Holness, who is mainly known for comedy. So I thought that was really interesting, because this movie's not comedic at all. Matthew Holness plays Dr. Rick Douglas / Garth Marenghi on Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, which is a really fun British comedy series, which only ran for 6 episodes, which I watched on Prime Video, actually I think within this past year. And so I really enjoyed that, and I was like, wow, it's the same guy that was Garth Marenghi on Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. So I'm really impressed with where he goes from here, because I think Possum was really, really good, and really, again, not an easy sit, and not a movie that you're going to want to put on like all the time.
Yeah.
But I was just in the right mood for it, and it really, really struck a chord with me. I really like Possum a lot.
Well, very cool.
What have you been watching?
So I watched one horror, more like horrible movie. It was on Netflix, and I figured, why not? I watched Mobius.
Oh, okay.
Figured it's a vampire movie. It's in the vein.
Yeah.
Gotta see all my superhero movies.
Yeah.
This movie much maligned.
Maligned, yeah.
Maligned movie Mobius. It's not great, but I knew that going into it, so it's just kind of like it met my expectations, which were pretty low.
Your very low expectations.
Yeah. It's just some stuff was interesting to it, but I think like it just kind of was up its own butt and just doesn't really make much sense of a movie. But I kind of expected that kind of coming out of it and all that kind of stuff. I just think you could just do a better Mobius movie, I guess. Like his face changes when he goes into like blood sucking mode, which is like,
does he get bitter beer face?
He gets old. He gets like old man face.
Oh, that's
like they change his nose and like his cheeks get sunken in.
Yeah, I think I've seen either in the preview or I've seen what you're talking about. Yeah.
I remember one person's critique of the movie is that in the movie he gets like a Nobel Prize for coming up with like a blood for blood transfusion, that a fake like a synthetic blood for blood transfusion that works for anyone. So like instead of like people donating blood, they could just use blood transfusion.
You have to match the type, or you have to be a universal donor.
This stuff just works apparently. And people were like, well, why doesn't he drink that? Like if he invented it. But in the movie they tell you why, basically. Yeah. So I was like, is that really the critique, or are they just making fun of it?
Those people weren't paying attention, is what it is.
It's hard. So I watched it. It's like, I don't know. Probably could spent my time doing something better, but I was on a plane and I just figured, like, why not? So I watched it.
Didn't make you want to leave the plane.
No, it didn't make me want to jump out the plane or anything like that.
Oh, that's good.
So, it's okay. I think the best part is probably Matt Smith, because he's just having a field day in it with the movie and dances and does a really like kind of seductive dance, which is pretty awesome. And all that kind of stuff. So I watched Mobius. Not great, but I knew that going into it, so it just kind of met my expectations. The other movie I watched was a horror movie from the 90s, the mid-90s, starring Harrison Ford, called What Lies Beneath. I remember the poster for this movie, like with a hand in the bathtub, I believe, is what it was. And it was a movie that Kirby liked and wanted us to see and stuff like that. And figured for Halloween, why not watch some kind of spooky, supernaturally-ish kind of movie. And it didn't really work for me that much. Like I just had, I don't know, it just was okay. It just didn't really, I didn't find it that captivating. I kind of saw what was going to happen pretty early on, so I was just waiting for that. And I don't know.
I think you needed to have watched it back when it came out,
Yeah.
because it was a big thing when it came. Because I saw it when it came out, and
Yeah.
I remember liking it. I haven't seen it since, so I couldn't tell you anything about it. But I remember liking it back then, and it was just a real crowd pleasing
Yeah.
horror film
Yeah.
back in the day when it came out. Yeah, I think you missed the boat by not watching it back then.
I'm 100% agree with that.
Is it Michelle Pfeiffer that's in that?
I believe it's Michelle Pfeiffer,
Okay.
right? As his wife. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's, I don't know. Okay. It's it didn't do anything for
It's
me
okay.
this time around.
I need to watch it again, but who
Yeah.
knows? I might have the same reaction
Yeah,
as you did,
or maybe not.
now in 2022, or if I watch it.
But it's just kind of cool seeing Harrison Ford like not as like a dashing leading man and
Yeah.
kind of someone with flaws and foibles and all that kind of stuff. Like I thought that was the most interesting takeaway from the movie, you know, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's so iconic as Indiana Jones and
Han
Han
Solo,
Solo, that to see him in a movie like Frantic, the Roman Polanski movie, or Regarding Henry, or What Lies Beneath, you're like, oh yeah, Harrison Ford does other
Yeah.
things that aren't blockbusters.
But
Well, I mean, of course, you know, I guess What Lies Beneath I think was a blockbuster. That's Robert Zemeckis.
I think it
As
is
well,
Robert Zemeckis. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's some flashy like camera moves and stuff like that they're trying to do.
Nice.
But stay away from 6 Days, 7 Nights.
Oh
sure.
man, I forgot all about that movie.
Terrible.
R.I.P. N.H.
Of NH. All right. So yeah, that's what I've been watching. I watched Mobius, which was as bad as I thought it was going to be, and What Lies Beneath. A little disappointed, but it's good to see Harrison Ford stretch a little bit back in the 90s.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked about one Noah Baumbach movie, Margot at the Wedding. I think we've teased adequately that we're probably watching another Noah Baumbach movie on Wednesday. Why don't you tell us what movie you decide to pair with Margot in the Wedding and why? Margot at the Wedding. And why.
You've provided a perfect segue when you talk about Mobius, because in our movie for Wednesday, the girl's trying to get into the Mobius Literary Society.
That's right, she is. Boom,
Yeah.
synergy.
Perfect, buddy. All
And
right,
it
yeah.
also stars another girl he marries.
It did. Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna do another Noah Baumbach movie. So this movie, Margot at the Wedding, is about two sisters. Margot is at Pauline's almost wedding. She actually doesn't have the wedding, but Margot and her sister kind of come together in Mistress America, which is what we're gonna do on Wednesday. You've got about to be stepsisters coming together. So yeah, we'll talk about Mistress America, another Noah Baumbach movie on Wednesday.
And one of them's a writer.
One of them's a writer once again.
Pulling from
Yes.
real life.
That's right.
All right. Well, stay tuned Wednesday for Mistress America. Please like, subscribe, share, do all that social media stuff. It really does help, and we really do appreciate it. And we'll find out on Wednesday what Mistress America means. They tell you in the movie, they say the titular line and all that kind of stuff.
We do.
So stay tuned for that. Have a good one. We'll see you soon. Bye.